That's how the legislature works, right? There's a bill we don't like. We point out the areas we don't like. We let the bill sponsor know, and she made the changes, and we've moved into a position where we are not opposing her bill anymore. If it's easy to get someone out of a home, then the quicker that home will get back on the market, and the landlord, the owner, doesn't risk that much income. We're really finding a good balance of fixing the consumer protection issues that need to be addressed, but still making sure that we can practice our business in the way that's best for realtors, that's best for private property rights, and truly best for this industry.
Welcome back to Nevada Realtors Today, your place for timely updates on the news and trends that matter to realtors in the Silver State. And now let's join your Nevada Realtors President, Brandon Roberts, and Nevada Realtors CEO, Tiffany Banks, for today's episode of Nevada Realtors Today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of Nevada Realtors Today. This is one of our last couple of legislative takeovers, and I'm here by myself this week. We had an audio issue on the original recording, so it's not going to be quite as funny because I can't laugh at my own jokes, but I probably will anyway. So nonetheless, here's a quick little recap of some of the things that we've done in the last couple of weeks since we last connected. We went and testified against, actually not testified against, but signed in for AB 121, and that's a bill that would essentially make sure that there's a way for tenants to pay without any sort of service charges. Right, they have to have a free option to pay rent. Right now, some of those online portals charge $19, $20, $25. So the legislature wants to make sure that the tenants have a way to pay without any sort of additional service fees. They also want to make sure that every sort of fee, any sort of fee that could be charged is disclosed on a single page. And we don't think that's unreasonable, right? That's just transparency. It's consumer protection, right? We don't want people getting into leases and then all of a sudden seeing they have another $60, $80, $100, $150 of additional fees because of, some sort of quote unquote mandatory fee that some landlords are charging. So we actually were opposed to this bill, and the bill sponsors, Assemblywoman Venetia Considine, took some of our amendments and added them into the bill to make it a little more fair. And so we've moved to neutral on this bill. So thank you very much to the Assemblywoman for accepting the amendments that we made. And that's how the legislature works, right? There's a bill we don't like. We point out the areas we don't like. We let the bill sponsor know, and she made the changes, and we've moved into a position where we are not opposing her bill anymore. AB 223 has to do with habitability. That was another one. This is an interesting one because when you went to the initial, what I'm trying to say here, the initial at the assembly when we were testifying against it, a lot of the people that were testifying, it was definitely some habitability things. We certainly want people to live in clean houses, mold-free, no bugs, things like that. But a lot of the people that testified were in support of this bill. We're talking about how they needed a little more time to pay rent. So we're opposed to this bill just because, again, it just seems to be one additional way to extend that process when people aren't able to meet the terms of their lease. We can have the conversation about affordability and whatnot, and we're having these conversations. But this bill was written, or at least the way it's going to be enacted, and if it passes, is going to be just a way to extend eviction timelines, and that's not what we're in support of. So AB 44, this one I testified against yesterday. This was an interesting one. This is the Attorney General's price fixing bill, and it's just a de facto way to enact rent control. So if you price your property outside of the 5-year average of comparable homes, you could be considered in violation of this bill and under investigation. So our argument is like, what if you fixed up your kitchen and updated your home, new floors, new everything, and you charge a higher rent than the 5-year average in that area? We believe that that's not fair, right? If the market's willing to pay more for a nicer home, then they should be able to pay more for a nicer home. And if I'm a bad business person and I just overprice my houses, well, then too bad for me, right? Like, it shouldn't be a criminal act to have a bad pricing structure. So certainly against this bill. AB 201, this was on the ceiling of evictions. So interesting bill again. It was the automatic ceiling of eviction. So the landlord or the owner wouldn't get notice. It just, if they didn't file something within a year to essentially dispute the reason or dispute at the automatic ceiling of an eviction notice, then it would automatically be sealed. So I don't know if I really explained that well, but essentially the law would make any eviction sealed after 1 year. You wouldn't be able to look it up, right? It'd be sealed in court records. So if you pulled that person's credit or records or whatever, however you do that stuff as property managers, you wouldn't be able to see that eviction unless the landlord made an affirmative objection to it. So again, we want to make sure that people are aware of why, who their tenants are, maybe why they got evicted. And again, this goes back to the summary eviction argument too, right? If it's easier to remove someone from a home that's not paying their rent, that's violating the terms of the lease, the more likely that landlord is willing to take someone on the margins, right? Like, hey, like I always give this example. My daughter's 18. She's about to get into, the housing space in a year or two. And she doesn't have credit. She's not going to have great income at that time. So is the landlord going to just skip over her, or because she's higher risk and move to someone who makes, 5 times the income of the rent, right? We want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to get into a home, because the harder it is to remove someone from a home, the more difficult it is for that person to be placed in a home, right? So if it's easy to get someone out of a home, then the quicker that home will get back on the market, and the landlord, the owner, doesn't risk that much income. But if it takes 4, 5, 6, 7 months to get someone out of a home, they're going to make sure that tenant can pay with no issues whatsoever, and housing will just become more and more expensive. So we've had this conversation with different legislators. The more restrictions you put on, the more difficult it gets and the more expensive it gets. Let's see here. And one more to talk about. AB 377. This is a good bill. This one is about the 3% and 8% cap. So when you close on a home, you would sign a card at closing that says I'm an owner occupant or I'm an investor, and that would get sent over to the assessor's office, and that would be how they would know who's an owner occupant or who's an investor. So right now we get those cards in April, May, June, whenever they arrive. And we have to check that we're an owner occupant or not an owner occupant. And if we miss it, we have to wait a whole nother year. There's no, retroactively going back and updating your taxes and things like that. So we want to make sure that people are charged the right tax cap at the beginning. So this is a way to do it. The bill was last heard just last week, but it's in the finance committee. There doesn't seem to be any fiscal notes, so hopefully it makes it through. But that's what's going on. If you have any questions, reach out to me, azim@jessagroup.com, AZIM @jessagroup.com. And love to hear your feedback or any concerns. I know there's a lot of other bills through, but guys, we're having a good session. Our lobbying team's doing a really good job. Our LMT is doing a really good job. We're having lots of conversations, and things are going well. We're really finding a good balance of fixing the consumer protection issues that need to be addressed, but still making sure that we can practice our business in the way that's best for realtors, that's best for private property rights, and truly best for this industry. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you in a week or so. All right, enjoy.